was watching a movie with a friend, and by the end we were talking around it, and she said, I don't know that it's a really good story because I'm having to sit here and basically think too much about it. There's not an obvious message. There's not an obvious meaning that I can take out of it, understand, and apply. And I wanted to argue, and I just fell silent and started thinking in the moment, like, is that true? Is a good story one that you can just get and you understand? And I don't know. What do you think? Go ahead and let me know, because here's how I'm starting to walk around this idea. So I'll just think about it out loud. There are some stories that are intentionally very simple and you just get them. Parables might be like that, or fables. But there are some stories that are poorly written, that are badly done. There are a ton of movies and books that are like that, where you can't get the message, and you do have to think really hard to sort of dig through what the author did, and perhaps in spite of what the author created, maybe tease out the message. But that's for an author who's written something poorly. What about someone who is cooking with excellent ingredients? Maybe it's got some flaws, but they end up doing something, perhaps unexpectedly or maybe intentionally, that is actually really deep. And my thinking is that if it's a really good story, you're not going to get it immediately. You're actually going to chew on it and come back to it, and you're not going to be able to tease it all out immediately. And there's a good reason why. And the reason why is because stories don't exist as objects outside of us. Especially a story that we really love. We take it in and something clicks. And it might even be pre-conscious. We might not even be fully aware. It might be the kind of thing where your soul gets it, but your mind doesn't. And your soul intuits something in the story. Case in point for me, I was watching a movie 6, 7 months ago now, and I found myself absolutely bawling and crying towards the end of the movie. My wife looks over at me and she's like, "Are you okay? Like, you don't usually do this." And my brain was like looking down my throat, down into my heart, going like, "What is going on with you? I didn't program any of this, But it's because something much, much deeper than my conscious mind or brain was resonating with something incredibly deep in that story, and I needed to go take 2 months and just feel through why that story had such meaning for me. So I think that in the same way, when you go to read a myth or you go to read a story, especially a story that has endured for thousands of years, I love how Martin Shaw will talk about stories as, in some special way, they're almost like living things, because what a story is does not emerge just out of a human mind or just out of human experience. It is something that comes out of the transpersonal space that we all live in. C.S. Lewis once called us amphibians. Like a frog that can be on land and on water, we are amphibious in the same way that we function in material world, but also there's a 50% of us that is also functional in the realm of spirit, which is a massive, deep, highly complex and evolved realm. That's where we go when we dream. That's where we're trying to break into or that's where mystic experiences happen. That's where imagination draws from and goes to work. That's what's happening when you intuit things. That's what happens when you are inspired. It comes from that realm, that place. That's where stories come from, because stories are the language of the soul, is how the soul communicates. So all that to say, when you come across a story and you're at the end and you're like, I don't know if that's a good story or not, because I didn't get it immediately. And I'm wondering, maybe it's a bad story and it wasn't created with any good intentionality or something, or maybe it's got some really good elements and there's something in you that is resonating with it, and it takes time. And this is one of the things, this is just what it means to be a human, is that sometimes something that you want to learn or understand is gated for you because not enough time has passed and the soul is seasoned by time. That's what this human lived experience is about, growth in time. And so sometimes a story will have meaning because it has resonance with you, like two pieces of music that work together, or two tongs of a tuning fork, and you hit one and then the other just starts resonating. In that same way, there could be something in the story and then it's resonating with you and you don't quite understand why. And if you don't understand why, that means it's very deep and very personal, and it might take time for you to start to get awareness. So I don't know. It just struck me as kind of an interesting sort of thing. And what's the sort of application or the thinking that could then come from that? And it might be this. It might be that, I'll get to the comments in just a second here. It might be that if you're writing a story and you don't fully understand what it is you're writing and you don't fully have control over it, that might not be a bad thing. And that might not be a point of weakness as an author. It might be that you've intuited there is something in this story that you love. And what does that mean? It's something that you can't help but be pulled toward it. It's not like you just look at it and decide, you know what? I choose to like that thing. I'm just going to sit here and do something just because I've decided to like it. That's not exactly how real love works. That's attraction. That's what we just discussed. Love is something that works on you, and when you follow it, when you flow with it, you feel free and happy and like you're doing the right thing, and this is what you're supposed to be doing. And if you're crafting a story where you feel like you don't fully have control, well, first of all, that's kind of an exciting place to be in my mind, because that could very well mean, as an artist, you have crossed a threshold where your consciousness and your planning and your logic in a way no longer applies. And now you have to feel through what it is you think you're doing. And you're always trying to surface that up into what the conscious mind does, because that's kind of why we're here. Is you got to use both. You got to use your intuition, but then also try to understand that with your the logical, pragmatic, practical side of you. But sometimes you can be intuiting something in a story and you're like, I don't know why I love this. I don't know why I kind of want the story to go this way. And maybe it's not a big deal, and maybe it doesn't necessarily mean there's mystical insights pouring into you. It just might mean this is a part of you that you haven't experienced or thought through, or something that needs to be exercised and worked out. For me, it might be I love young adult training sort of things, like magical schools and stuff. And I was thinking this morning, why does that matter to me? Why did I dream about that, for example, last night? I wonder if my inner child is stuck at that level of development. And I need those kinds of stories, those kinds of experiences. I need to write that stuff to quite literally be exercising and growing my internal development, my soul, inner child, whatever word you want to use. And like someone who is growing up, you have no idea where things are going to end up until you actually live through them. And I think that's why some stories just grab us and we can't let them go, because they speak to something extremely deep and extremely meaningful. And if you're writing a story and you feel like you don't fully have control, one, it could mean you haven't done enough planning, which is totally me. Or it could mean, if you're taking it seriously and you're really moved by the love of the thing, that there are elements in it that you don't fully understand because you haven't experienced them or lived them yet. I definitely know, like for me, there's things I now understand only because I'm now, 36. And when I was 28 or 21, I had no clue, no ability to understand them. You could have told me the words and I wouldn't have got them because I hadn't lived long enough to get into it. And that actually gives me a lot of hope when I'll read other people and they'll talk about, it took me till 45 to get this, or there are certain insights you can understand about reality only at, let's say, 65, because it's a matter of You're getting older, more time is seasoning you, and that puts you in resonance with different things. And so, all of this to say, relax, enjoy the journey. If you don't fully get it, maybe that's okay. Leave those unanswered. And maybe it's a matter of you needing to feel through and experience what it is that is working on you. There's a speaker named, or what is he? He works in dream work. His name is Robert Moss. And he says sometimes, we don't only dream, sometimes we are being dreamed. There's parts of us that are connected, as we talked about, this amphibious life that we live. We're connected to other things that we don't fully understand. And sometimes other things, like our soul, is dreaming us and is trying to pull us along into a deeper, more expansive, more integrated adventure of life. So it takes humility, it takes patience. And for me, it's not obvious to me that if I don't fully get a story, it doesn't mean it's a bad story. It could mean there's depths and layers of meaning that maybe the author didn't intend, but maybe I bring that to the reading of the story. And that's where no story exists as itself like a museum artifact. Every story is like a piece of music that really takes on meaning when it is heard inside a person who hears it. I don't know. I might change my opinion. Just chewing this through with you, and curious what you think. Let me have a quick look at the comments here. Thanks, Tish, for subscribing. It is good to meet you, and welcome. You are now one of our legends in this writing community that we're putting together here. Mary says she's finishing a preview chapter for the sequel to her novel. Congratulations, and that is so exciting. Mary says, yes, that sounds right to me. A good story gets better and better the more you think about it, and it can be understood on more than one level. Exactly. And I think you'll find that, for example, with fairy tales. Like, you'll read them and you'll love them as a kid, and then you'll come back later as a teen and all of a sudden go, oh, there's other themes in here that have much deeper meaning. Then you come back as an adult, and then there's another layer of meaning that jumps out to you. And it was all there. I just wasn't developed enough to see it. And Mary leaves a nice comment. This is all great. I agree, understand some stories much more now than when I was younger. And I find that when I let myself write about things that scare me, I often write some of my best work. That's amazing, Mary. I hope to be brave enough to do that sort of thing. Figure out what scares me. Very cool.